Do hippos protect their territory like meerkats and fish? What unusual way do peacock spiders use to get the female's attention? What are business relations in the animal world? You'll learn that now. In this episode, I'll show you the most tense and interesting moments with animals. Hippos battle. Yes, as you've already realized, I propose to start exactly with the fight of two large animals. I'm sure if I don't show you this video and ask you how epic you think it'll look, many people will say that everything will be within the norm and won't be able to surprise you. Unfortunately, this kind of misconception is widespread among people. We pay too little attention to classic animals and forget about who the truly dangerous ones are. Hippos, as you realize, are exactly from this number. Just look at how wide they open their mouths. And it would be alright if it were just huge. In addition to everything, the bite of these monsters has an insane power. There's a reason why the hippopotamus personified certain deities. I don't know, I look at this footage and it takes my breath away. Give me a like if you're also amazed by the power of this animal. By the way, it was not only people from the past who showed their respect for it. Our contemporaries who live in the habitat of the hippo also behave extremely respectful towards it. This giant is considered the master of Africa, who can die only because of health problems or old age. I call the hippo the master of Africa for a reason. These animals are extremely territorial and are not willing to forgive mistakes to random encounters. Their indestructible skin, more than a ton of net weight, huge teeth, and impressive speed, all this makes hippos one of the strongest creatures. They'll tolerate no invasion of their territory and certainly no aggression towards their relatives. If another creature even once glances at a hippo, it'll immediately spring from its seat and go for a showdown. In addition, hippos are always in shape, so their chances of winning the battle will be maximized. Their secret is that the males fight regularly. They find out who's the biggest and strongest of their herd, and accordingly, who will be considered the leader. According to scientists, this fight doesn't die down after the leader has been elected because they have such a fiery temperament. Sarcastic fringehead. That's the name of the next creature we're going to talk about. It's a sarcastic fringehead from the family Cynopsidae that grows up to a foot. It can be found in the eastern Pacific Ocean off the coast of North America from San Francisco to Baja California. After watching this video, though, I'm not sure I'd want to look for it. The video shows a sarcastic fringehead fighting back against a brazen octopus. Then it protects itself against a fellow fish just as easily and effortlessly. Despite the fact that these fish are quite small, they have the desire to defend their native territory in full swing. According to experts, this may be due to their hunting principle. These predators attack almost anyone. They come out of the fight victorious, and it's only later when they decide whether they can eat the creature at all. In the mating season, their aggression is unlimited. Males attack their fellows. They attack every person they meet. The fish needs it just to appear the strongest in front of a female. It's quite likely, by the way, that in our video there was a battle for territory and an element of fight for the female. These fish are usually found at depths of 65 feet or more. But if you see them in shallow water, you'll learn that it's better not to mess with them. Fight for the female's heart. I think that these words would perfectly describe what's happening in the following video. We're looking at two desperate marmots who fought against each other for the sake of a female who was watching the fight from the sidelines. There's no time to choose a suitable place for a scuffle, so they decided to brawl right on the road. For us humans, the fight may seem ridiculous, but in fact, the passions in it were boiling over. It's a pity, of course, that the end of the story turned out to be nothing. The males never found out who was stronger. A motorbike drove past the marmots and dispersed the animals in different directions with the noise of its engine. The author of the video has not yet posted the second part of the battle. Sometimes animals will get into any fight without much thought, but at a future date they can be wise and cool their ardor, analyze the situation, and not get involved in a fight that would be their last one. This is exactly what happened to this coyote that encountered a bear. The big one came out from behind the house and put the coyote in a compromising position. It seemed that it was going to search for food in the area, and here was another, obviously strong predator. It would have been possible, of course, to attack the bear and try to exhaust it. However, it was risky, and the coyote decided to retreat. By the way, aside from the tension between the animals, can you even imagine the face of the house owner who viewed this footage? That moment when you realize that in the middle of the night, while you're sleeping peacefully, a hungry bear and an equally hungry coyote are walking by. And I don't think they're all dangerous predators in the neighborhood. But come on, the man himself chose a house near the woods. Let him get on with it. And we'll go further and look at an extremely annoying crow. The crow didn't like the fact that some ducks were walking around its home territory, where it collects tribute from people every day. The crow didn't even pay attention to the fact that it was a mother with her cubs. I'm not going to talk about maternal instinct and how wonderful things it can do. You know this well. So let's just watch their funny fights and try to understand what all the fuss was about. Yes, the relationship between ducks and crows is not the best. This is not the case with the water-thick knee that made a seemingly impossible alliance. Her colleague is, you may be surprised to learn, a real crocodile. Mutually beneficial cooperation is great, but only humans seem to know about it. Animals can't figure it out, right? If you thought so too, I'm going to surprise you. They can. Here's a feathered bird who made friends with a crocodile. It may seem that they have nothing in common and can't help each other. However, this is not the case. In fact, water-thick knees are first-class babysitters who will gladly take under their caring wing both their own cubs and strangers. The mating season of these birds and that of crocodiles falls around the same time. During the dry season, both members of the alliance also lay their eggs around the same time. When the female crocodile makes her nest, the bird will carry favor with her and lay a couple of eggs in a small hole close to those of a crocodile. But the reptile won't even try to gobble up the chicks. And that's because there's now a pact between the two mums. From now on, the giant reptile will protect the birdlings as if they were her own. No major enemy will be able to get close to them. And if the crocodile needs to go away for food or water, she'll be replaced by a feathered bird. In turn, she'll take care of her own and the crocodile's cubs. Yes, of course, the water-thick knee does not inspire the same fear as a crocodile. However, this isn't needed. The most important thing is the righteous parental rage. According to experts, this baby is able to chase away even a monitor weighing several pounds. Another surprising fact is that the eggs of the feathered creature mature several times quicker. At the same time, she will not leave her friend, but she will continue to fulfill the terms of their agreement until the reptile also hatches offspring. I wish all the animals in this world would learn to compromise and find common ground. It can happen that two fellow beetles can quarrel and get into a serious battle. For example, a nature lover's camera caught an exciting battle between two dung beetles. The subject of the dispute, as you may have noticed, was a ball of their favorite treat. They use it as a resource and also as a nursery for their larvae. Perhaps it's the importance of this object that flared tempers between the two insects. In short, the battle between them was intense, and in the end, after a mighty blow, they still managed to determine the winner. I'll disturb you. These must have been the thoughts in mind of this tiny turtle that was trying to catch up with the cat with incredible speed and agility. According to the owner, there's always a little conflict between these two. The cat drove the turtle out of the house, and now it's the latter who's chasing the cat out of its garden. If you tell someone about what's happening in this clip without video evidence, I think that no one will believe it. I wonder if they still have a chance to mend their relationship, to start living together and not fighting. If you have any thoughts on this, be sure to write them in the comments. Grouses fighting. Yes, you've understood everything correctly. Now we'll talk about these beautiful birds from the family of pheasants. The bird owes its name to the well-known feature of the male to lose sensitivity and vigilance in the mating period. This, by the way, is often used by hunters, but let's not talk about sad things. The grouse is the largest bird of the family with the same name that differs from other brethren by its strongly rounded tail and elongated throat feathers. Our guest inhabits coniferous, mixed, and deciduous forests of Eurasia. It's easy to distinguish whether it's male or female. The formers are all bloated, large, and brightly feathered. Well, the females, on the contrary, are completely unsightly and gray like mice. But I still propose to return to the reason why they're nicknamed like this. People call grouses a forest horse. No, the grouse doesn't gallop across the field and does not roar. Just during the very mating, our feathered bird makes strange clucking sounds. They're so similar to a shoeing horse that uninitiated citizens may feel as if a herd is marching nearby. In reality, however, you shouldn't worry. It's most likely an ordinary competition between the birds. By the way, do you remember? I said that during this process they lose sensitivity and vigilance. Well, if we talk about it in detail, the cranial bone of the bird simply blocks the ear canal, and the male literally becomes deaf. The beak remains open all the time during mating. Accordingly, the throat sacs are activated, and until the male stops making sounds, his hearing will not return. But maybe he doesn't need it at all. The bird will be much happier if a female bird comes out to meet him after his performance. However, it happens that instead of a nice female, there's a furious male on the horizon who will do everything to eliminate a potential competitor. Grouses often die of wounds in such battles. Dangerous games. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about the violence that goes on in grouse battles. Let's move on to the peacock spiders. They'll be calmer. Calmer, isn't it? It starts off quite nicely. Peacock spiders are tiny arthropods that are considered insanely dangerous, but only within the framework of other small creatures. Humans are kind of unaffected by their venom. These 0.2-inch spiders see quite well, up to 8 inches in distance, and always manage to spot the enemy in time. If we're talking about females, they also manage to spot the male in time. Here you probably think that seeing a representative of the opposite sex, the female will crawl to him, she'll suggest that they meet, and everything will be fine, right? Sounds like the plot of some novel. But no, everything is much more unusual and, alas, dangerous. When a male meets a female, he starts showing off his colorful belly to her. At the same time, the male remembers all the moves he learned in dance school and shows himself 100%. After that, the spider will stand and pray, only to be answered, "You're a great dancer," because otherwise the female will run up and eat the worthless one. Although, to be honest, even in the first case, everything is not very good. Females often eat their husbands anyway, only after mating. But don't worry, karma works 100% in their case. And after the mother lays her eggs, she dies a couple of weeks later. The exhaustion thing is just too serious. Really, not as a family, particularly not like a family of meerkats. Who didn't know these cute and compact critters are common in South Africa and prefer the most open and desolate lands that are almost devoid of trees. Do you want to meet them in person? Look for them around the savannas and open plains. I shouldn't have told you about this. Poisonous snakes might overhear this information and use it to find one, or worse, a whole family of meerkats. Here we go. Look, one of the snakes is already out hunting. It seems as if meerkats are doomed to failure because there's nothing they can do about the creeper. They don't have any particularly sharp claws or huge teeth or, tough skin. And as you can see, they're not exactly big either. But don't worry. Mother Nature has ensured these animals against invasion by random poisonous guests. Even if you give the creepers the exact coordinates, they'll come and they'll get a well-deserved kicking. Firstly, meerkats are a real family. Animals that will never abandon their loved ones in trouble and will fight till their last breath. According to scientists, they're highly organized creatures that always live in colonies and share responsibilities. Secondly, poisonous snakes are not scary to them at all, as meerkats have a high immunity to their toxins from birth. They're also relatively resistant to the venom of some scorpions inhabiting nearby deserts. But meerkats aren't the only ones renowned for being highly intelligent and socialized. Elephants are among the animals that are highly intelligent. These giants are characterized by sympathy for their fellows, collective actions, living as a family, and caring for the younger ones. Moreover, they can also show compassion for other people's cubs. But no matter how cool they are in this regard, if the conversation turns to the dominant male status, they'll become adamant and harsh. It's lucky that the elephants in this video managed to avoid a fight, although I personally thought it was going to happen. According to the scientists, these elephants were terribly hungry, and against this background, their level of aggression increased many times. It's a real miracle that everything ended so well. A snake attack and an unexpected encounter with a pin-toed animal, a funny movement of raccoons, and bold magpie robbers, a trick with a levitating dog, and a rare beast's comeback. Later on, you'll see the most insane moments with animals caught on camera. We start with this curious clip that keeps you on the toes from the first seconds. In the video, you can see a rather large bear approaching a small boy riding a scooter. If the pin-toed animal had been aggressive, the incident could have ended sadly. But firstly, the bear was calm. Secondly, an adult man came to help the boy and chased away the animal back to the forest. The man spread his arms and seemed bigger to the predator. It's surprising that after this situation, the boy didn't cry, didn't panic, didn't hurry home, but continued riding his scooter as if nothing had happened. Have you ever thought about what our favorite pets do when they stay at home on their own? A girl from the next story, for example, was sure that her dog was sound asleep, but it turned out that he was playing with footwear. It's a good thing that she had a surveillance camera at home. Moreover, that was not a simple camera, but one with a live stream and even dynamic activation. Noticing that her pet was gnawing footwear, she hailed the dog, making him stop. Then he stood up, looked into the camera with his puzzled look, and went away from this keen object, possibly in search of the second sneaker. The hero of the next story was also caught. Not by people, but by a kind and responsible cat. A raccoon was accurately making its way to the house, just in case there was an entrance somewhere so that it could go inside and eat something tasty. People were sleeping in the middle of the night, which means that the mission was doomed to success. If it hadn't been for one but. This is a vigilant four-legged guard. She frightened the raccoon with a sharp movement and made it change the route. The stray beast was not ready to join the battle. It wasn't stupid to fight against a cat on its territory. Speaking of raccoons and their intellectual capabilities, scientists from the United States found out that there are on average 438 neurons in comparatively small brains of raccoons, which puts them on an extremely high step regarding the mammal intelligence scale. Interestingly, the number of these neurons is not the only important indicator. You had to understand how exactly these creatures use their intellect. For this, people made a test, as usual, but with the use of marshmallow instead of classic food. The sweetie was floating in water, the level of which was too low for the animal to get it. Then researchers threw stones into it to raise the water level and observed if the animal understood this and repeated their actions. As you've already guessed, raccoons have perfectly understood everything and quickly accessed the sweet things. No one of you will notice anything strange in the next clip. The man takes his bike and goes for a walk, whereas his favorite dog goes out of the house and doesn't let him leave the territory. It goes without saying that he's not in his power to deny a request of his loyal pet. That's why he stops, turns around, and spends some time playing with the dog. Everything sounds logical, right? Except that it's not the retriever's host, but a real robber. The robber had enough strength and desire to stop and play with this nice dog. Interestingly, as people said that had their bicycle stolen, their retriever stayed put for several minutes and chased after the cyclist, not to catch up with the ruffian and do justice, but just to spend time together. Listen, it seems to be the sign for hosts that their pet lacks care and love, meaning that they urgently have to do something with this for their own sake. You always have to close the doors, especially if you live in Thailand and have a rest somewhere out of house. After all, in this case, you'll have all chances to encounter a wild creature. It's exactly what's shown in the next video from the surveillance camera. The camera recorded a sly snake that had stopped a person who had planned to leave the building. Fortunately for the poor one, the crawler just hung on his clothes and didn't hurry to attack anybody. However, the man was not glad about what had happened and desperately rushed back to the internet cafe after knocking down another man and scattering several chairs. Following that, widespread panic was caused. Fortunately, no one of the participants of the curious incident suffered, whereas the reptile was caught and released to the wild. In fact, people from the last video were incredibly lucky. I would even say that it was real magic that helped them. In such vivid and expressive contact, the snake could switch to the self-defense mode and bite someone. But if you think that magic has nothing to do with this incident and it does not exist at all, look here. What do you think it is? The pet dog, Lalika, mastered the levitation art and took off. At least this is how it looks at first sight. However, if you look closer and ask what the person thinks on this score, living in this house, it'll become clear that it's just a confluence of circumstances. The camera really did catch the dog, but one resting on the floor, its clothes hanging around that cast shadows. The thing is that everything blended in with the common picture, giving the impression of a levitating object. This video comes from India. Judging by it, not all animals respect rules and laws implemented by people. The monkey came to the cash machine and managed to tear off its front panel. However, all you can do is to accuse the hooligan of vandalism. There was no robbery. The primate didn't even plan this. He was just interested in playing with a piece of plastic. And this is exactly what he did. Following that, the animal ran away back to the forest. Speaking of primates, catch 2 or 3 curious facts about them. They say that some chimpanzee species are so similar to us that, in theory, we can use their blood and transfuse it to people and vice versa. There are such primates as howler monkeys, so we can hear them crying at a distance of several miles. And what's more, if you see a primate yawning, be sure that it doesn't lose its power and doesn't hurry to sleep. In the majority of cases, yawning is a sign of a quarrelsome mood and irritation. Scientists can often easily comment on videos, especially if they're related to animals. After all, we know much about them. But what can we do if things we see contradict the information we have? Scientists know that the Tasmanian wolf died out long ago. However, the next video leaked out to the internet. A group of experts on wild nature snapped off these shots in the Australian state of Victoria in 2014. They left a camera for the night right on the path. In the morning, they saw something no one had expected to see. A mysterious creature was running in front of the camera, bearing a close resemblance to the Tasmanian wolf. One would have probably gotten away with it, but the Tasmanian wolf died out in the 30s of the last century. Can it be so that these scientists were mistaken, and the creatures of this species are still alive? Be it as it may with the Tasmanian wolf, only time will show. For now, let's look at another curious video. This time with a deer we're all well acquainted with. This nice horned animal came to the candy shop in Washington. It accurately went around 2 main stands, smelt butterscotches, picked a couple of them, and then left. As the shop owner says, she doesn't feel sorry for the sweeties. What's more, she'll be glad if the deer visits her again. Speaking of deer, do you know that they annually shed their antlers and then grow them again? Young deer antlers are covered with skin and hair. However, as long as they grow, their skin dries up and peels off. This is exactly why deer with developing antlers rub them against trees. One of the smallest specimens in the family of deer is hoodoo. Its body differs from 2.6 feet to 3.1 feet long and with a weight of no more than 22 pounds. Unfortunately, small size does not play into their hands and does not help to escape attacks. On the contrary, because of such dimensions, they're extremely easy to hunt. So hoodoo is on the verge of extinction now. I ask weak-nerved people to tear away from the screen. Next in line, we have a video showing the way most dangerous predators of the present hunt. A huge wildcat planned to attack the camera. It was filmed by and turned on the disguising mode. Seriously though, how is it possible to be such a nice kitten? Will anybody explain that to me? Despite all the beauty and tenderness of the previous pet, I can understand its displeasure with the camera. Who would like to always be observed? The dog from the next video proves the same. The German Shepherd saw that she was filmed by a too curious camera. It was shabbily to break it. That's why the smart pet acted otherwise. The dog put a stuffed toy right in front of the camera and blocked the view this way. She neither damaged the host's object nor was disturbed herself. The pet did a good job. Interestingly, it would be a different matter if you did not see anything in the surveillance camera. This is not so bad. It's much sadder when you look at the footage and see a myriad of bees. These territorial creatures seemingly decided to invade the whole house. For the sake of the truth, I would not have worried in the place of those people. After all, as scientists found out, bees are not so dreadful as we see them. The bee venom turns out to be able to destroy HIV and alleviate pain if you have arthritis. For this matter, they're not in a hurry to frighten someone. The thing is that bees have a lot of troubles. They regularly work hard. In colder seasons, they can live up to 9 months. However, in the summer, when they have to fully dedicate themselves to honey making, the insects rarely live more than 6 weeks. In the direct sense of this word, they die because of exhaustion. I can tell you more. Each bee has its own task in the beehive. It alone, or just several definite specimens, are responsible for. Bees can be spies, guards, morticians, and those yielding honey. Each type of work requires specific brain chemistry. This allows them to perform their work efficiently. When they change tasks, honey-producing bees that perform a large amount of work alter the chemical composition of their brains to adapt to a new kind of activity. Relying on scientists' words, their ability went to such an extent that when aging bees do their job designed for younger specimens, their brain does not grow older and on the contrary becomes younger. Just imagine how markedly the world could change if people gained insight on this issue and were able to borrow this skill for themselves. In fact, life in the animal world is not as boring as we can imagine. This regards not only multifunctional bees but also raccoons. Most raccoons, for example, must keep in her head a lot of things only to successfully and without any surprises move to another house. This process is so difficult for her because she's a single mother that has to care for several small raccoons simultaneously. One got lost, another got tired. Well, you know that. Despite all the difficulties, the mother from this video managed to get over this. I hope everything went better afterwards. Another thing is to be a single squirrel. You do not worry about your offspring, do not have to look after anybody, and do not change your address. In essence, your life revolves around eating different delicacies you find in people's homes. A squirrel from this video found a bag with tasty things and could not just pass by. It's curious that when people saw that someone had poked his nose into their bag, they thought that that was the work of a usual robber, except that the surveillance camera showed that it would be hardly possible to accuse someone of robbery. It was a wild squirrel's fault. After approaching this wonderful bag, the beast did not only have a snack but took something away as a supply. Interestingly, it's really important for this creature to make as many secret pastries as possible. The thing is that these creatures often forget where they hid food. In a day, a squirrel can process and hide more than 100 cones, which will provide it for food for 3 months. Many of you may know that these beasts are perfect at cracking nuts. But did you know that they can crack not only nuts but also electric wire? In the USA, squirrels caused a decrease in the stock index of high technology's NASDAQ after turning off electricity in Alabama University. The thing is that these animals often sharpen their teeth against branches. However, they can't tell a board from a wire. This is what resulted in short circuits. Now let's have a look at a mischievous bulldog that was resting under the sun somewhere in North Carolina, USA. The weather was fine that day. The mood was also good. However, something lacked – some fun and drive. Wishing to correct this nuisance, the bulldog armed himself with a water hose and poured his friend Matilda. It's interesting whether the female was so unhappy about what was happening. Was she planning to take revenge upon him? If you're ready to help it and have already thought of a treacherous plan, share it in the comments without failure. Wait, someone said a treacherous plan? If you want to see real masters in terms of treacherousness, turn to these magpies. The surveillance camera set in the house of Sydney residents recorded a very unusual crime scene. It turns out that magpies penetrate the house now and then. As you can see, they quickly emptied the bowls and understood that you could find enough food there. I was glad that one of the viewers commented on this record by writing that he recognized these magpies. What do we have for now? Is a group of the cleverest magpies at work in Australia? What can we do with them? I've understood that we have to provide each house with such a four-legged defense. This kitten, despite a serious difference in dimensions, will be ready to attack anybody who finds its place in its territory without permission. Even if you're a delivery worker, like in this clip, if they had not warned the kitten, if nobody had ordered the pass, the intruder would have gotten it. Escape from the cougar. Imagine yourself in the shoes of the author of this video. You're walking in some beautiful forest where different, brightly colored trees are blooming, admiring Mother Nature, and accidentally notice a small cat somewhere in the distance. Seems like nothing bad should happen, but in a matter of seconds, its mother appears next to the baby, and it doesn't want to risk the lives of its babies. How could it know for what purpose the man was walking here? That's why the cougar started chasing the guy for several minutes, not taking its eyes off him, and tried to scare him with sharp attacks. Fortunately for the man, in the end, everything was good, and the animal left him alone. But as the guy later said, it was clearly an experience he'd remember for the rest of his life. It must have been a long time since his hands were shaking with fear. As people later wrote to him in the comments, people often encounter cougars in that area, so walking there alone without any protection was a reckless decision that could have cost him his life. It's unlikely that he would have been able to escape from the cougar, which runs at speeds of up to 50 miles per hour while jumping 10 feet long. Didn't believe its luck. A man noticed a squirrel running near him and decided to feed it. The squirrel immediately smelled the delicious nuts and ran up to him, not afraid of human contact. Turned out to be the right decision. The man didn't want to harm the squirrel, and it, in return, gave him an unforgettable experience from feeding. After all, at some point the animal just froze. It was as if the squirrel had noticed some giant predator behind the man. I wonder why the animal did it. What do you think? If anyone has any thoughts on this, be sure to share them in the comments. A bear on their tail. The next incident took place in a forest in Slovakia. Two friends were riding their bicycles when suddenly one of them was chased by a real bear. The bear was very big, and no one knows what would have happened if it had caught up with the guys. Maybe the athlete didn't set a world record, but for sure he significantly increased speed to get away from the bear. Fortunately, the bear didn't try to chase them for long and very soon changed the route and ran deep into the forest. The friends rode some more distance, and only when they were sure that they were not threatened, they stopped to catch their breath. I wonder, after such an unexpected visit right in the middle of the road, will they still be riding in this area? It just seems to me that it's just such cases that give rise to phobias inside people. Hater. On the other hand, why be afraid of everything? Trouble can come to you from somewhere you don't expect it anyway. Even if you don't really move in any way and don't attract attention, some kind of problem like a dangerous snake can still fall on you. A man who is a keen blogger decided to record a video for his subscribers when suddenly he was stopped by a snake. Apparently, it was a hater of his channel and didn't want anything to be posted on it. Judging by the author's comments, he wasn't hurt in any way. The snake just scared him and didn't even want to chase him afterwards. The man himself changed the location and no longer filmed anything under the trees. In general, judging by videos from the internet, snakes like to scare people, make them panic. Here's another video where a creeping creature tried to attack a man right on the road. At least the author of the video presents it this way. In fact, snakes never attack people without a reason. They're simply not interested in us. The only time they might attack us is if we pose a danger to them. So just stay away from the creeping creatures, don't make any sudden movements like the girl in this video, and no one will ever touch you. Whether it's a harmless, non-venomous snake or even some crazy toxic snake. By the way, for you to understand, the most venomous land snake in the world is considered to be the inland taipan. Despite this, there are no known fatalities due to its bites in humans. And this is despite the fact that its toxin is about 180 times more powerful than the king cobra venom. On average, one snake produces 44 milligrams of venom. It's enough to kill 100 people, or 250,000 mice. But even such powerful creatures know that with great power comes great responsibility. That's why they don't pounce on any person they encounter and use venom only in self-defense. That's about it. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel.